Moonfall is the latest addition to the Roland Emmerich never-ending series of disaster movies that he likes to make. Just from the title alone, the moon is falling. That's the plot. The moon is falling. We gotta send some smart scientist people up there to stop it. That's the plot. You don't need any more details other than that. You're either gonna like it or you're not. You know, you know what this is. If you enjoy Roland Emmerich disaster movies, you'll like it. If not, you won't like this. It's that simple. Well, I guess that's the end of the review. Bye-bye. I'm just kidding. I'm still here. As far as Roland Emmerich's career goes, a vast majority of his movies that I've seen, I have not really cared for. I enjoy Independence Day enough. You know, it's a goofy, entertaining movie. And even Resurgence. I haven't seen it since theaters, but I remember at the time going like, hey, it's just a goofy whatever movie. It was fun for me. I don't really care. It's fine. But everything else in his career that I've seen, I've just kind of been either whatever or just really down against. You know, The Day After Tomorrow is just kind of meh to me. White House Down is stupid. 2012 is stupid and too long. And then like a couple years ago, he released a movie called Midway, at the tail end of 2019. It was not a disaster movie. It was like a historical epic of, retelling some events of World War II. And I thought that was like really surprisingly awful. Like the filmmaking was incompetent. The action wasn't exciting. The visual effects looked like dog shit. You know, it felt like a propaganda movie where like there's not enough substance. There's nothing interesting about the way you're telling this story. It just feels like a hokey, cheesy, old-timey war movie. And I'm surprised that anyone, especially Roland Emmerich, wanted to do a movie like that in 2019. So when I heard that a new disaster movie was going to be coming from the mind of Roland Emmerich called Moonfall, the moon is falling, I was just whatever towards it. I knew in the back of my mind there could be something fun about this movie. A lot of people especially have talked about like, you know, if you're gonna complain about a Roland Emmerich movie, like, what did you think you were gonna see, you know? Like, like, come on, you should know what to expect at this point. I have fun with Roland Emmerich movies. That's like a topic of conversation. And sure, they have a point where, you know, if you have not liked a large majority of Roland Emmerich movies, you're probably going to walk out of this movie going, oh my gosh, that was so dumb, and what did you expect? I totally get that, but at the same time, you know, if something can be entertaining and also goofy and ridiculous, that's great, you know, because that's what Independence Day is, at least for me. If it's just like goofy and stupid, but there's nothing else to take away from it that's like fun or entertaining, then, you know, I'd like to talk about that. And I think it's really rich coming from Roland Emmerich, who's like recently in interviews talking about like, the very vague kind of cliched statement at this point, like, oh, superhero movies are destroying cinema. You know, it's the same thing over and over again. I find that really funny coming from him because although, you know, stories change, his stupid story elements remain in all of them to the point where it does feel like you're watching the same movie and over again when it comes to him. This is another addition to his long series of disaster movies that I did not like. I thought it was really bad, but it starts off in a way that's stupid, but then gets increasingly more stupid as it goes on, which I was baffled by. Wow. But that's the thing though, is that, you know, the plot setup when they're actually like talking about it, like I was actually kind of on board for it, just as far as like, hey, this is kind of a fucked up kind of scenario, you know, to center a movie around, especially in the third act where they just go, you know, fuck it, let's just throw in this completely out there kind of idea and see if it sticks. And I kind of wanted to ride with it just because like, hey, this is absolutely ridiculous. It's an explanation for stuff that's going on, but wow, this is so out there. But I kind of wanted to ride with it, and I probably could have if the rest of the movie could have at least been good up to that point. The movie opens with like a flashback with Patrick Wilson and Halle Berry doing a space mission. They're with some other third person that doesn't have a name, and it doesn't matter because they're about to be taken out by this black cloud. This moving black cloud of robot parts takes them out. Patrick Wilson and Halle Berry survive the damages and they get back to Earth, but nobody believes Patrick Wilson. Halle Berry was knocked out and can't attest to what Patrick Wilson is saying, so they drift apart and Patrick Wilson becomes a loser who can barely afford the rent on the house that he's staying at. But it's weird because in this day and age, right, if you say some crazy shit happened to you in, you know, outer space, you're an astronaut, some crazy shit happened in outer space, the government is lying to you, you know, and it's as vocal as how they're showing it here. Like, yeah, he's on the news talking at one point, look at this crazy man talking about space robots or whatever. You would get a following at least. Like, it might not be exactly people you want to be following you, but you will get a following at least. And I find it really dated, the idea of like, man, I got discredited, no one believes my wacky story, and now I'm a nobody, I'm a loser. It's weird that a movie that also focuses on a conspiracy theorist character who also has other conspiracy theorist friends, it's weird that they then didn't make the connection of, Patrick Wilson probably would not be considered the big loser that like a 90s or even hell or early 2000s disaster movie character like this would be. They would have some sort of following, they would not be completely jobless forever. And I found that really dated. That's a dated quality to the screenwriting and the character development here. Patrick Wilson is a fun actor. He's an actor who I enjoy, and he is definitely, out of everybody in this movie, he's the actor who I can say, like, you know what, he is trying to make the best of this. He has charisma. He's totally right for like a movie star kind of role in Hollywood. You could give him a bunch of great roles and he'd kill it. But this role, it seems like it's completely wasting his talents. It's kind of unbelievable. And they give him the very, very stock backstory of like, well, I had a family, but then this negative press happened about me, so I separated from them entirely. They got a new stepdad now. Oh no, my son is getting in trouble with the law. I'm gonna go help him out. Except I didn't. It's all very stock, and none of it works emotionally. I could not connect to a single thing. Charlie Plummer is Patrick Wilson's son, and I like Charlie Plummer, but in this he is so bland. They introduce him just for the sake of Patrick Wilson is kind of my thing. They introduce like him on the news, like, oh my gosh, this guy got pulled over, and he's like, that's my son. Goes to a courtroom, does the stupidest thing imaginable, which was yell at the judge, gets his son potentially in more trouble, and then you don't see the son for a bit, and then it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on, and then finally, after what feels like forever, he comes back, but there's, once again, no emotional connection with him or Patrick Wilson. There's like nothing to that character. It's just, well, we have to bring him back, and we have like 2 lines, or it feels like 2 lines worth of like actual conversation, and then we're just moving on. I gotta go into space, son, get out of here. And all of a sudden he is now running a side plot to the main story, and it's like, I don't care about this character. I don't care about the other characters that he is with. We're just doing this just so you can do the Last of Us thing, where they're gonna run into some thugs and they gotta do some survival shit while, disaster movie stuff happens, and it's so lame. Especially those Last of Us thug villains. Like, they literally, like, at points it feels like they just show up magically, like they've teleported there just to be, a source of conflict for the scene that's happening. And it's like, I understand this is a disaster movie, the moon is falling, you do want some characters on the ground to show off what is happening, because that's fucked up. But the thing is that, like, I don't care about the characters, and really, what would make the movie faster is if you cut all this out and just focus on the characters going up into space. And I don't understand why we need to do this, but I think a bigger problem is that could have worked. You just need to restructure the movie. You need to restructure this thing and have Patrick Wilson and his family be a key part in the beginning, at least. Have them interact quite a bit, And I think a good way of doing that is to cut out the character played by Sam from Game of Thrones, John Bradley. I think that's his name. And look, he's a fine actor, and in this movie I can't say he's like awful as far as like acting, but he is the comedic relief conspiracy theorist character. That's the entirety of his character, and it is so unfunny and it's so annoying. And something that I realized is that, hey, you're trying to give him like a backstory with like his mom really briefly, but the problem is that I realized after a while, like, you could cut out this character, give everything that he says later on in the movie to someone else, and it would not change a fucking thing. Usually the conspiracy theorist character is there because they know something that nobody else in the movie is talking about, or somebody else in the movie is refusing to talk about, and they're the ones that actually know what's up. Like a recent example, Godzilla vs. Kong, where he had Brian Tyree Henry. He was running a small podcast where barely anybody listened, but Millie Bobby Brown was listening to it. She's like the actual smart one or at least she knows at least a bit about the monster, so she believes him. You know, she understands that he knows some stuff that everybody else doesn't, and they go on a subplot that nobody else is focusing on, because this is specific for them. In this movie, John Bradley is just doing stuff that we are already focusing on a group of scientists in the government discovering and trying to work on. If anything, he only makes things worse because, you know, he discovers this information, posts about it on a blog, and then suddenly everybody has heard about it, everyone's freaking out about it. Crazy that, you know, this movie also believes that someone who is a conspiracy theorist posting on just a random website, who knows how many people have seen it, that this information will spread and that everyone will believe that. You know, that's absurd. That's ridiculous. But in the context of the movie, his character actually makes things worse, but he doesn't really do anything that this scientist team needs him for. Like I said, you could give his dialogue to somebody else, and it would not change a single thing in the plot. And that is weak character writing, you know? Why do I want to watch a character who's annoying me with their jokes and basically has no purpose in the story other than, well, we need to get Patrick Wilson involved with the plot, and how can he do that when he's a disgraced NASA astronaut? How can we do that? Rewrite the script? Nah. Literally, you could just have, like, you know, Halle Berry is working on, you know, the actual problem in the mission control room, whatever. And then she's like, oh, Patrick Wilson was right. He has some experience with this. Let me give him a call. And that's all you need to do. You don't need Patrick Wilson to be like, so John Bradley, what's going on here? You want to explain this to me? You know, I don't know what's going on here. You should explain this to me. You don't need that. You don't need this character. My God. And speaking of Halle Berry, like, it's weird because, like, she's not... There's somebody who's worse in the movie as far as acting goes. Her ex-husband, who every single line is a dud. There's no emotion to it. There's no emergency to it. There's nothing. He's just a complete flat line throughout the entire thing. It's so bad. So Halle Berry is not that level of awful as that actor, but it just seems like she's acting off of people who don't really care. There's so many moments in this movie where the acting is like, oh my gosh, the moon is falling. And there's like no emotion, there's no fear. Everyone acts so weirdly. Like, no one is acting like a real human being, but Halle Berry is trying to, but she's completely off from everybody else too. Like, it's just this weird, disconnected thing, you know? She might as well be like voice acting or something, because she's giving something else and she has no idea how everyone else is coming off. It's that kind of performance. I had some hope knowing that Donald Sutherland was in the cast, and when he popped up in the movie, I was like, oh boy, one of the greats, here he comes, let's do it. He has one scene. A scene where they barely utilize his talents. He is the definition of in and out in this movie. It's just a day worth of shooting and he gets a big paycheck. Wow, how embarrassing. So there's like no one on the character side of things that is making this a little bit more enjoyable where I'm actually interested. I feel like I could have definitely been interested in a Patrick Wilson, you know, reunites with his family, you know, falls back in love with his wife kind of story. Sure, if you just, even if that sounds generic, been there, done that, just give it a bit more time. Do something a little interesting with the performers you have here. I can at least say some of the performances, you know, aren't bad. Like, you know, Donald Sutherland, he shows up for a scene and it's the best thing out of anyone in this movie. So not everyone's bad, but a lot of people are, and I blame it mostly on the direction. I think Roland Emmerich directed his actors poorly. So the character side of this isn't working as far as like the action sci-fi disaster stuff. I mean, sometimes when you're watching it, you know, you can't help but deny it. Maybe it's kind of entertaining. I think this movie's kind of half and half though as far as a lot of its technical stuff. Like, you know, sometimes the action can look kind of cool, but other times it can just be kind of whatever. Like, I'm not engaged. I don't really care for the filmmaking on display here. Sometimes the visual effects can look cool, mostly when they're actually in outer space, I'd say, like mostly when they're focusing on that big black dust cloud of whatever. But a lot of the times when they show like faraway shots on Earth, it looks like it was just rendered, or just like a couple patches away from being great. Like, it looks that bad. It looks that unfinished. I can at least say the musical score was consistently alright, you know, it was consistently just kind of like, hey, you know, it's not completely generic. It's kind of fun to listen to with the rest of this movie, I guess. I don't know, I feel like I'm cherry picking, like, well, this wasn't that bad, and this wasn't all that bad. Like, as I even said earlier, like, you know, the initial, like, if you look at it from far away, the plot, you know, could be interesting. It's an interesting kind of sci-fi plot, especially with what they try to throw at you in the third act as far as the reveal goes. But then thinking back to the way they revealed it, it's literally like, oh, you don't know Patrick Wilson? Well, let me give you some exposition. A millennia ago, and just this little child that represents, a computer program is giving exposition about what's actually going on. And in that context, it makes it worse for me. Especially the ending of the movie where it seems like, I don't know, the ending was confusing, and I think it was intentionally supposed to be like that. Well, that maybe there could be another one, you never know, we could maybe do more sci-fi stuff, and it's like, do I want more? I don't think I do, you didn't make me care about anything going on while we were here. There's like a specific character where at one point I was like, oh, they're gonna have this start to happen, but then this character, because they're kind of butting heads a bit, this character is going to go back, help them, and then they're going to come out of this as better people, better friends, whatever. Nope, they completely abandoned that. What seemed like they had very simply set up as an arc, they just don't do it. They don't close that at all. It's literally just like, well, we've had this character for a while now, and it might seem like we're setting up some kind of character arc, but actually we're not. We're setting up a this. And it's like, wow, you threw that character out without no hesitation. So basically, all in all, it's exactly what I said earlier. It's a Roland Emmerich movie. You know what you're getting into. If you like that, cool. If you don't, then stay away from this movie. It has stupid decision-making, bad dialogue, bad jokes, occasional bad visual effects even, and, attempts at filmmaking that sometimes can come off as fun and exciting, and other times are just like, I don't know, I'm just kind of bored, and just a complete lack for character work, some really, really bad writing here. I honestly still believe that, like, Roland Emmerich could probably still direct a solid enough movie if you gave him a good script, you just pair him up with a different writer, and then keep him out of the writer's room, because that's the thing, is that I see what a lot of the times Roland Emmerich is trying to do with disaster movies as far as, like, doing some stuff with character work, and it's like, that's not a bad idea, it's just the way you're executing it is flat and generic. You need someone else who, like, has an idea for theme, has an idea for just basic storytelling. You don't even have to go, like, really deep, just, like, basic kind of storytelling of, like, hey, if you set something up here, you should probably at least pay that off or subvert it in a way that's interesting, instead of just doing whatever because you're Roland Emmerich and don't care. That being said, though, he's made another movie that is purely his, that he clearly wanted to make, was very passionate about making, so bless him for being able to continue to do that, but I just want a good movie, I just want another movie that's at least as fun as Independence Day initially was. Even Stargate, I finally watched that like a week or two ago, and I like that, I like Stargate and Independence Day more than anything else he's ever made. I'm gonna give Moonfall a D+ with a bad story, a bad reveal, a bad ending, bad character work, some mostly flat action, some very basic, very generic stuff. It's just not the movie for me. If you have fun with this kind of thing, go ahead and have fun with the crazy, stupid shit that happens. Literally, there's so many points, last thing I'll say, literally so many points where something bad is about to happen and characters are just kind of looking at it like, whoa, that looks pretty bad, and then they wait till like the last second and they're like, oh wait, we gotta go. It's like, come on, give me something. The characters don't react in ways that they should. Too many characters. There's like like Halle Berry has, like, I believe the role is foreign exchange student. I could be wrong about that, but she's just kind of there so Charlie Plummer and her can once or maybe twice vaguely flirt at, and then that's it. It's like, what are we doing? But if you've seen Moonfall, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.